Good morning. Let's start with the another chapter of module 2 of SY BCOM. That is, the name of the chapter is consumption function. If you have any doubts regarding this chapter, you can contact me on my detail. I had mentioned my mobile number also, and I had mentioned my email ID also. You can use any ways to contact me. Let's start with the chapter. That is, the name of the chapter is the consumption function. Consumption function. These Keynesian is the name of the person, name of the economist. That is, he has defined the psychological law of consumption. In that, the law of consumption, he wants to explain us that the consumption function is directly related to the income. That is, they want to tell us that as your income increases, जैसे जैसे आपका income increase होते जाएगा, वैसे वैसे आपका consumption increase होते जाएगा, but at a less proportionate. Why they had told at a less proportionate? In that, as हमारा level of income increase हो गया, that means the level of income is getting increases. That means we will not consume all the amount of level of income. That means पूरा के पूरा हम हमारा उसको income को expense नहीं करेंगे. Out of that income, some part we will kept as a saving. Why we will kept as a saving? Maybe in future any contingencies will come, any problem will come. So if we will save our money in present time, that means we can use that money in our future. So that's why, see here, they had mentioned the psychological law of consumption. State that aggregate income increases and the total consumption expenditure in the economy also increases, but in a lesser proportional then increase in income. So in that, they want to tell us that as your level of income increases, your consumption expenditure will also increases, but at a slower rate. Why at a slower rate? Because here the Keynesians wants to tell us that all the income you will not all the income you will not made an expenditure. So out of that income you have to save some part. See there they had mentioned, thus there arise a gap between the income and expenditure. It is a gap is not filled up. It will lead to the deficiency in effective demand, resulting in the lower output and unemployment. So here, if you will see in the next point, that is according to the Keynes, with the increase in income, both saving and consumption will be increases. Consumption increases at a diminishing rate, and the saving increasing at a increasing rate. Why they want that a Keynesian wants to tell us that the consumption expenditure will also increases, but at a diminishing rate, because out of the income, all the income we will not made an expenditure. So that's why they want to take at a diminishing rate. Diminishing means what? We will do an expenditure, but not the whole income we will do an expenditure. So out of that we will kept some part as a saving, and the saving in the second part they had mentioned in the saving also increases, but at a increasing rate. That means we will save more and more money out of that income. So that's why they had mentioned the 3 points. When the income increases, the consumption expenditure will also increases, but less than the proportionate. The increment of income will divide the consumption and saving in some proportion. Increase in income always lead to increase in consumption and saving. Nextly, they had explained us that with the help of equation, that is C is equal to F, ब्रैकेट में लिखे उन लोग ने y. That means C is the function of income. As the function increases, my consumption function will also increases. Next part, they had explained with the help of schedule. When my income is zero, the consumption, see in the schedule we have to consider only 3 part: income, consumption and saving. That MPC, MPS, APC or APS we don't have to consider over here. Only these 3 things we have to consider. See in this schedule they had explained us that when my income is zero, my consumption is 300. Why the consumption is 300 at the level of income is zero? Because if we want to survive in the economy, that means we have to consume our necessity product. That's why at the level of zero we have to consume. So from where this 300 consumption will come? Because if you don't have income, तो हम क्या करते हैं, कहीं से लेते, किसी के पास से उधार लेते हैं, किसी के पास से खाना कहाँ से हमको खाने आता है. That means, so in the economy no people will survive without food. That's why at the level of zero income the consumption is 300. And in the saving, if you will see that there is a minus 300. Why it is minus 300? Because at the level of zero income we had a consumption, but we don't have a saving because our income is zero. Nextly, when the income increases to 1000, that means consumption will also increases to 1200, but the saving is minus 200. Why saving is minus 200? Because my income is less than my consumption. As the income increases to 200, my consumption will also 200 and my saving is 0. That means here in this part it is the equilibrium part where the income is equal to consumption. जितना हमारा इनकम था उतना ही कंजम्पशन था, बट माई इनकम इज वेरी जीरो. जैसे जैसे मेरा इनकम बढ़ गया, जैसे 2000 से 3000 हो गया, दैट मीन्स माई कंजम्पशन इज 2700. दैट मीन्स हियर माई इनकम इज मोर, कंजम्पशन इज लेस. दैट more 300, that is 3000 minus 2700, the 300 we will be save our money. When my income is 5000, my consumption is 3800 and 1200 out of that 5000, 1200 we will kept as a saving. So this can be explained with the help of diagram also. In this diagram, see in this diagram, on x-axis we had taken the income and on y-axis we had taken a consumption expenditure. So when my income is zero, my consumption is 100. Here they had mentioned the C, that is consumption is greater than income, and here below that arrow they had mentioned that the autonomous consumption. Autonomous consumption means what? This consumption has been divided into two parts. One is the autonomous consumption, another is the induced consumption. Autonomous consumption means what? Autonomous consumption means the consumption which is independent of income. If we don't have an income, then also we have to consume. That is the autonomous consumption which is not dependent on income. And another part is the induced consumption. In induced consumption which is dependent on income. If we don't have income, we will not consume. So that's why if we are having an income, then only we can consume. That is the induced consumption which is dependent on income. So here at the level of zero income we have a consumption, that means it is a autonomous consumption. It is an autonomous consumption. So that's why as my level of income is getting increases, see, as my level of income is getting increases, my consumption, my expenditure, my consumption is also getting increases. See this part, my consumption expenditure is also getting increases. Okay, so my consumption expenditure is also getting increases. And another part is the, here if you will see the saving part, because as my level of income is increases, my consumption is increases with a my consumption expenditure is more and my level of expenditure is my level of income is less. That's why this is a part is a saving part, as the point B indicates the equilibrium point where my income is equal to consumption. As if you will move from the Y to Y1, as my income is getting increases, see the upper part of the arrow, see here, this one is the Y is equal to C, this is the B point. As my income increases to Y to Y1, that means my arrow is getting upper side, and my consumption, see this arrow, my consumption expenditure is less. That means this one, and this part is indicate my saving part. That means my income is greater. So that's why they had mentioned over here Y is greater than the C. Y means income and the C means consumption. So that's why here it is my saving point. That means after the level of equilibrium, my income is greater my consumption, and out of that consumption, out of that income, some part we are kept as a saving. That is also called as this shaded portion they had mentioned over here as a saving part. Another part we had over here, determinants of consumption function. That means this consumption function has been divided into two parts. First is the part is the subjective factor, and the another is the objective factor. Subjective factor is nothing but the psychological motive. We have a psychological, that means we have to keep some of our money for our contingencies, for some of our precautions. Maybe anything can be happened in the future. For that we are kept our money as a saving. That's why they had mentioned which induce the individual to refrain from sending. So this psychology factor we make the individual to save more, are like, first they had mentioned the subjective factor is the motive of precautions. In the motive of precautions, in the motive of precautions, see here they had mentioned in the motive of precaution, that means we are kept our saving for the precaution purpose, like maybe any contingencies will be created in the future. So maybe accident will be happen, maybe illness, maybe some person will ill in your family. So for that you are kept, if you will kept your money as a saving part, so from that you can use that money. Then after that there is a motive of foresight. Foresight means अभी हम इसीलिए in the present time we are saving our money for what purpose? That means for education purpose, for old age purpose, for education of the children. So that's why we are saving our money in the present time. Then the motive means what? मकसद. ये जो हम जो सेव करते हैं पैसा, उसके पीछे मकसद क्या है? मोटिव ऑफ कैलकुलेशन. दैट मीन्स वी आर सेविंग सम पार्ट ऑफ अवर मनी फॉर व्हाट पर्पस? फॉर इन्वेस्टमेंट पर्पस. समटाइम्स क्या करते हैं, कई लोग ऐसा करते हैं कि अपना कुछ पार्ट सेव करके रखते हैं फॉर द इन्वेस्टमेंट पर्पस. दे आर इन्वेस्टिंग द मनी इन द शेयर. देन देयर इज अ मोटिव ऑफ इम्प्रूवमेंट. इन द मोटिव ऑफ इम्प्रूवमेंट दैट मीन्स अगर हमारा कुछ मनी, अगर कुछ हमारा पैसा सेव किया हुआ होगा, देन ओनली अवर स्टैंडर्ड ऑफ लिविंग विल बी इंक्रीजेस. Then the fifth point is a motive of independent. In the motive of independence, some people in our family, they are some members in our family. Sorry. Motive of independent, that means we are saving some part of our money because we don't have to be dependent on anyone. We don't have to be dependent on our family. That means if you will save some of our part of our money from our income, that means we are independent on ourselves. Then the motive of enterprises. Motive of enterprises, if suppose if you want to set up your enterprise, if you want to open your business in the future, that means you kept your saving out of your income so that you can use your money for the future purpose to set up your business. Then the motive of the pride. ये हम हमारा पैसा क्यों जमा करके रखते हैं? क्योंकि समटाइम्स क्या होता है, अगर हमारा पैसा जमा किया हुआ होगा, देन ओनली हमारी जो स्टेटस रहेंगे हमारी सोसाइटी में, डेट विल बी इंक्रीजेस. एंड द लास्ट वन इज अ motive of avarice. If a people are miserly by temper, they will save more money and consume less. Sometimes क्या होता है, people की person की psychology की रहती है, मेरा income में ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा save करके रखो और उसको consume less करो. Next part is the objective factor. In the objective factor, that is the first part is in the objective factor, that is the first part is a change in the income. In the change in the income, that is a this change in income is directly related to the income. If my income increases, obviously my consumption will also increase, but more than the consumption, the saving part will be increases. So that's why they had a mention over here the direct and the positive relationship between income and the consumption. Then there is a change in the interest rate. If suppose अगर interest rate will be changed, that means the if suppose अगर हमारे economy में rate of interest will be increases, that means the people will consume less and save more in order to gain from the higher rate of interest. That means इसमें क्या होता है कि अगर समझो हम हमारा अगर पैसा बैंक में ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा सेव करके रखेंगे और उस टाइम एट दैट टाइम द रेट ऑफ इंटरेस्ट विल बी हायर इन द इकोनॉमी, दैट मीन्स वो सेविंग पार्ट पे हमारा ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा हमको इंटरेस्ट मिल सकता है. इसलिए उस टाइम पे क्या है, मोस्ट ऑफ द पीपल दे आर कंज्यूमिंग less. Then there is a next fall is a windfall gain or the loss. Sometimes क्या होता है कि unexpected gain like lottery price increases the income. Sometimes क्या होता है पब्लिक पीपल को क्या होता है कि एकदम अचानक से लॉटरी लग जाती है, तो उससे क्या होता है उसमें इनकम the level of income has been increases and the consumption expenditure will also increases. तो वो क्या करते हैं तो and suddenly losses will reduce the consumption. और suddenly अगर समझो किसी को लॉस हो गया तो उसका कंजम्पशन भी क्या होता है डिक्रीज हो जाता है. नेक्स्ट देर इज अ फिजिकल पॉलिसी. इफ सपोज अगर गवर्नमेंट की पॉलिसी अगर चेंज होगी, डेट मीन्स अगर समझो इनकम टैक्स के रेट अगर नीचे गिर गए तो पब्लिक क्या करेगी, कंजम्पशन ज़्यादा करेगी और सेव थोड़ा लेस करेगी. और अगर इनकेस अगर समझो इनकम टैक्स अगर ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा इंक्रीज हो गए तो पब्लिक क्या करेगी, कंजम्पशन एक्सपेंडिचर दे विल डू अ लेस एंड दे विल सेव मोर एंड मोर मनी. दैट मीन्स उसमें क्या करता है, उन लोग का जो सेविंग पार्ट है वो क्या करती है, पब्लिक जो गवर्नमेंट से हाइड करके रखती है, छुपा के रखती है, सो दैट they will not be disclosed to the government. Another, there is a demographic factor. In the demographic factor, there is a variation in the consumption expenditure due to the demographic factor. If इसमें जो पहला बोला है size of the family. If suppose अगर size of the family is more, that is कि अगर किसी के घर में अगर big family है, joint family है, that means they will require more expenditure, more consumption expenditure. That means जितना level of income है वो पूरा के पूरा सारा के सारा काय में चला जाता है expenditure, क्योंकि most it depends on the size of the family. अगर समझो वही अगर छोटी family है और income अगर higher है तो उन लोग क्या करते हैं, वो accordingly उसके consumption expenditure करते हैं और most of the part they are saving. Then after there is the occupation place of the residence. Large families spend more than the small families. Urban families spend more than the rural families. देन देयर इज अ फ्यूचर एक्सपेक्टेशन. इफ सपोज इफ यू आर एक्सपेक्ट अबाउट द फ्यूचर के फ्यूचर में अगर समझो किसी के प्राइस अगर नीचे गिरने वाले या ऊपर बढ़ने वाले, तो अकॉर्डिंगली वी विल डू आवर कंजम्पशन एक्सपेंडिचर इन द प्रेजेंट टाइम. इफ सपोज अगर फ्यूचर में अगर प्राइस अगर बढ़ने वाले, तो उसका प्रेजेंट में क्या होगा, प्रेजेंट में उसका एक्सपेंडिचर क्या होगा, इंक्रीज हो जाएगा. और इफ सपोज अगर फ्यूचर में अगर उसके प्राइस अगर नीचे स्लैश डाउन होने वाले हैं, तो अकॉर्डिंगली हम लोग क्या करेंगे, अभी उसका एक्सपेंडिचर कम करेंगे, और जैसे फ्यूचर में उसका प्राइस अगर डिक्रीज हो गया, तो दैट टाइम द एक्सपेंडिचर विल बी इंक्रीजेस. देन देयर इज अ बर्डन ऑफ लेस. इफ देयर इज अ बर्डन ऑफ डेप्ट इज मोर, तो प्रोपेंसिटी टू कंज्यूम वुड बी लेस. अगर समझो हमने किसी के पास से कर्जा लिए, और अगर हमको कर्जा अगर पे करना है किसी को, तो इन द प्रेजेंट टाइम वी विल द प्रोपेंसिटी टू कंज्यूम, हम लोग जो हमारा कंजम्पशन एक्सपेंडिचर विल बी लेस होगा. क्यों? क्योंकि हम ये पहले ये सोचेंगे कि हाउ टू रिलीज द बर्डन ऑफ द डेट, कि हम उसका कर्जा कैसा चुकाए. और वही अगर समझो अगर बर्डन ऑफ डेट इज लेस है, तो हमारा कंजम्पशन प्रोपेंसिटी टू कंज्यूम विल बी मोर. Then there is a social security benefit. Increase in the government social security benefit like pension, health insurance will increase the consumption expenditure. तो अगर समझो अगर इसमें अगर पेंशन के गवर्नमेंट के ये दिस पॉइंट इज रिलेटेड टू द गवर्नमेंट, लाइक अगर गवर्नमेंट के गवर्नमेंट के पास अगर सोशल सिक्योरिटी बेनिफिट लाइक हेल्थ इंश्योरेंस है, या फिर किसी को पेंशन देना है गवर्नमेंट को, अगर ऐसे पीपल ज़्यादा रहे गवर्नमेंट के पास, दैट इज इन लोग की अगर क्वांटिटी अगर हायर रही, तो एट द टाइम द गवर्नमेंट कंजम्पशन एक्सपेंडिचर विल बी more. Then there is the next point is the price level. In the price level, when the price falls, purchasing power rises and the consumption increases. जैसे मैंने लास्ट ऊपर की स्लाइड में भी एक्सप्लेन कर चुका हूँ कि जैसे जैसे अगर प्राइस अगर समझो प्रोडक्ट के गुड्स और सर्विसेज के अगर प्राइस नीचे स्लैश डाउन हुए, दैट मीन्स कि स्लैश डाउन होने के बाद तो उन लोग का क्या होगा, कंजम्पशन एक्सपेंडिचर विल बी इंक्रीजेस. तो उन लोग क्या करेंगे, ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा परचेस करेंगे. क्यों? क्योंकि उसका डिमांड इंक्रीज होगा, और प्राइस जैसे जैसे फॉल होंगे, उसका डिमांड प्रो गुड्स और सर्विसेज का क्या होते जाएगा, इंक्रीज होते जाएगा. और वही अगर समझो अगर कोई गुड्स और सर्विसेज के अगर प्राइस अगर इंक्रीज हुए, दैट मीन द प्राइस ऑफ गुड्स एंड सर्विसेज विल बी इंक्रीजेड, दैट मीन द डिमांड फॉर दैट गुड्स एंड सर्विसेज विल बी फॉल. एंड द लास्ट वन इज द अवेलेबिलिटी ऑफ कंज्यूमर क्रेडिट. इफ सपोज अगर लोन, लोगों को लोन अगर जल्द से जल्द अगर अवेलेबल हो गया, मतलब if suppose I had applied for the loan and if I'll get that loan as soon as possible, that means मेरा consumption expenditure क्या होगा, बढ़ जाएगा. So here that's why they had mentioned if the loan are easily available for purchasing a consumer durable goods, then the propensity to consume will be more and saving will be less. तो इसमें क्या होगा, people क्या करेंगे, ड्यूरेबल गुड्स पे ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा सेव करेंगे, और उसका जो propensity to saving रहेगा, सेविंग का जो proportion रहेगा, it will be a less. Here we had come to an end with the chapter. If you are having any doubts regarding this chapter, you can contact me on my detail I had mentioned on the first slide. You can go through that. Thank you very much.